You live, Samantha?
California.
Oh.
I like how you put North Florida on yours. That's cool. Everyone should do that. Got people from all over the world.
That's true. This is what we do in my other group. We put where we're from, and the other group has sometimes a couple hundred people. They're from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
Not a Course in Miracles group. It's a recovery group.
Yes. A lot of Course in Miracles groups are also recovery groups.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Would you mind if I ask, what are those recovery groups? Never heard about them.
12-step groups.
Alcoholics Anonymous, AA.
Oh, I went to those, but I went to quit.
You went to quit. Yeah.
I was just one of those made and said, hey, where do I quit? No, just kidding. I didn't know. It says for alcoholics, drug dependencies, some sort of that. Okay, excellent.
Sex dependencies, food dependencies, shopping dependencies, gambling dependencies.
Oh,
all kinds of addictions.
This is my dependency, coffee. I can quit it. That's the only thing that got me going every morning.
Where are you from, Albert? Where do you live?
I live in South Texas, very close to the border with Mexico. Oh. Close to McAllen, Brownsville, Mission. Every time I mention Mission, everybody goes, what? So I got to mention McAllen, Harlingen, Brownsville. Those places are more well known.
Very good. You know, I was listening to this speaker who was saying that all addictions come from a place of feeling like you have a lack or a hole inside of yourself that you're trying to fill and feed, which of course would go hand in hand with what we study here in A Course in Miracles, right? That you need to go inside and fill yourself with love first. I think that's why Course in Miracles is so attractive to a lot of those other types of study groups, because people find a lot of support and healing through A Course in Miracles. And I think they're structured similarly to like the 12-step programs for that reason.
Definitely a spiritual experience. However, I've recently learned or watched a video by a Dr. Kevin McCauley, and it's called Pleasure Unwoven. And he's a neuroscientist proving that addiction is a malfunction of the brain. Once the pathways have changed, then it's a organic disease. So he's on YouTube if anyone is interested. It's Pleasure Unwoven. And then he has some lectures he's done that are shorter than the actual movie to show that it's a disease. It is not a moral issue or even a spiritual lacking. Yeah. But that does seem to be the cure.
Interesting. I know Dr. Joe Dispenza does a lot with that, with rewiring the brain.
Yep.
And his work is fascinating. He's actually done a lot of work with this COVID virus too, which they're employing him now to do some studies for them. So because a lot of his work is scientific based and proven in a scientific way. So it's pretty exciting about the brain, right? And how we can rewire the brain and restructure it and heal all kinds of things that go on with our bodies and our minds.
I've never heard of Dr. Dispenza. Is that Dispenza?
Right.
Yes. It's Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's got a lot of free, actually, you know where he is right now? He's doing the Hay House Heal Summit. If any of you are interested in getting that, that's going on. It started today. It opened a week ago. I register for it every year. I think this is the 3rd year. Oh my gosh, the speakers are amazing. They're brilliant. I see Angelina nodding her head.
Yeah, I want to go. I want to go.
I also joined it, and but it's only started today, so everybody can join, and you didn't miss anything.
Oh,
yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, it's for a whole week, and I listened to 2 lectures from the 4 that are available today. The first one I didn't align with so much, but then the second one was with Bruce Lipton, and I was like, just wow. And the amazing thing that some of the concepts that he's using are very much aligned with Course in Miracles. That was like a really like fascinating lecture, really. Like he talks about the choice between growth and protection. Growth is towards life and healing, and protection is towards, you can say, death or sickness. And he's like, it's really like love and fear. He's really talking about we just have this one choice. And
sure.
It's I was listening, he's not a Course in Miracles teacher, but he was so aligned. Yeah, beautiful.
Great. Thank you.
Just want to welcome everybody here. We're talking about the Hay House Heal Summit that just started today, but some of the videos were available this week. And I'd like to welcome also my new friend, Freddie, who I think I met over on Clubhouse. So thank you. Welcome here today. Great to have you here today.
Hi, I'm Freddie.
Hi, Freddie.
Hi.
Oh, Clubhouse is that group you were talking about that is just, you call in and you speak to different people, different subjects.
Yeah, it's organized in different rooms they have set up.
Well, I saw your advertisement for the group on one of the Course in Miracles pages, Facebook page.
Perfect.
That's how I linked it.
Excellent. I think I have you confused with another Freddie that I just made friends with on Clubhouse, but I'm so glad you're here, Freddie. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
We open up. Go ahead. I'm
in the UK, and I may have to leave before the finish because it's a little bit of awkward time here. But is the meeting already open yet?
Well, what I do is I open the meeting at noon so that we can have this kind of casual discussion for 30 minutes before we start reading.
I'm with you, yeah.
What I'll do is we'll start reading right now because it's already 12:30, but I'll leave the room open for a little bit afterwards because I see there's a lot of new people who've joined today, and I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. So if anybody wants to stay and hang out after 1:30, if you have some time, I'll leave the room open so we can just say hello and meet each other. Typically what we'll do is we'll start reading where we left off the week before, and after each section, I'll pause and open up the Zoom meeting so that if anybody wants to ask a question or share an experience or just participate in some level of conversation based on what we just read, we'll have a short discussion, and then I'll continue reading until 1:30, and that's when we stop reading from the book. But today I'll leave the room open a little bit longer because it's so great to have a lot of new faces on here today. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. I just would ask that if you're not talking, you might want to mute yourself. Some people forget, and sometimes there's background noise.
Hey, Terry.
Yes.
Really quick. Also for Freddie, it's recorded, so it'll be sent out in an email afterwards. So if you have to leave early, it'll be recorded and you can watch it there as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Trying to share my screen here. There we go. Okay. I was trying to get to that and it wouldn't let me pull it down. Okay, so I always share my screen where we're reading so that you can join in while I'm reading. And today we are on A Course in Miracles, Clarification of Terms, the introduction. So I'm going to start here now. This is not a course in philosophical speculation, nor is it concerned with precise terminology. It is concerned only with at-one-ment or atonement, or the correction of perception. The means of the at-one-ment is forgiveness. The structure of individual consciousness is essentially irrelevant because it is a concept representing the original error or the original sin. To study the error itself does not lead to correction, if you are indeed to succeed in overlooking the error. And it is just this process of overlooking at which the Course aims. All terms are potentially controversial, and those who seek controversy will find it. Yet those who seek clarification will find it as well. They must, however, be willing to overlook controversy, recognizing that it is a defense against truth in a form of a delaying maneuver. Theological considerations as such are necessarily controversial, since they depend on belief and can therefore be accepted or rejected. A universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. It is this experience toward which the Course is directed. Here alone, consistency becomes possible because here alone, uncertainty ends. This Course remains within the ego framework where it is needed. It is not concerned with what is beyond all error because it is planned only to set the direction towards it. Therefore, it uses words which are symbolic and cannot express what lies beyond symbols. It is merely the ego that questions because it is only the ego that doubts. The Course merely gives another answer once a question has been raised. However, this answer does not attempt to resort to inventiveness or ingenuity. These are attributes of the ego. The Course is simple. It has one function and one goal. Only in that does it remain wholly consistent, because only that can be consistent. The ego will demand many answers that this Course does not give. It does not recognize as questions the mere form of a question to which an answer is impossible. The ego may ask, how did the impossible occur? To what did the impossible happen? And may ask this in many forms, yet there is no answer, only an experience. Seek only this and do not let theology delay you. You will notice that the emphasis on structural issues in the Course is brief and early. Afterwards, and soon, it drops away to make way for the central teaching. Since you have asked for clarification, however, these are some of the terms that are used. Okay. Let's talk about this. Is anything coming up for anyone around this? All right. If there are no questions or concerns, let me jump right into our next section, which is mind, spirit.
Can I just ask a question since it's my first time here?
Absolutely.
This document, I guess it's a PDF or it's a site. Is it
Yes.
set up? Because I have a book. I've never seen it online.
Yes, I have a book too, and I do read my book, but for the purpose of being able to share what I'm reading today, I also go to acourseinmiraclesnow.com online, and the entire Course in Miracles is on this website for free.
Oh, great. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I have my book, and that's, usually what I am reading out of when I do my daily practice, but you can find it here, and I like to share my screen, so if people want to read along, it makes it a little bit easier. But feel free to read in your book too. We are near the end of the book, Clarification of Terms. We just read page 77. So now we are getting to page 79 in the Clarification of Terms, which is mind and spirit. So if you'd rather do that and follow along in your books, feel free to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, mind, spirit. The term mind is used to represent the activating agent of spirit, supplying its creative energy. When the term is capitalized, it refers to God or Christ, i.e., the mind of God or the mind of Christ. Spirit is the thought of God, which he created like himself. The unified spirit is God's one Son or Christ. In this world, because the mind is split, the sons of God appear to be separate, nor do the minds seem to be joined. In this illusory state, the concept of an individual mind seems to be meaningful. It is therefore described in the Course as if it has two parts, spirit and ego. Spirit is the part that is still in contact with God through the Holy Spirit, who abides in this part, but sees the other part as well. The term soul is not used except in direct biblical quotations because of its highly controversial nature. It would, however, be an equivalent of spirit, with the understanding that being of God, it is eternal and was never born. The other part of the mind is entirely illusory and makes only illusions. Spirit retains the potential for creating, but its will, which is God's, seems to be imprisoned while the mind is not unified. Creation continues unabated because that is the will of God. This will is always unified and therefore has no meaning in this world. It has no opposite and no degrees. The mind can be right or wrong, depending on the voice to which it listens. Right-mindedness listens to the Holy Spirit, forgives the world, and through Christ's vision sees the real world in its place. This is the final vision, the last perception, the condition in which God takes the final step himself. Here, time and illusions end together. Wrong-mindedness listens to the ego and makes illusions, perceiving sin and justifying anger, and seeing guilt, disease, and death as real. Both this world and the real world are illusions because right-mindedness merely overlooks or forgives what never happened. Therefore, it is not the one-mindedness of the Christ mind, whose will is one with God's. In this world, the only remaining freedom is the freedom of choice, always between two choices or two voices. Will is not involved in perception at any level and has nothing to do with choice. Consciousness is the receptive mechanism, receiving messages from above or below, from the Holy Spirit or the ego. Consciousness has levels and awareness and can shift quite dramatically, but it cannot transcend the perceptual realm. At its highest, it becomes aware of the real world and can be trained to do so increasingly. Yet the very fact that it has levels and can be trained demonstrates that it cannot reach knowledge. Okay. Anybody want to add or discuss or ask questions about what we just read?
I'm confused about one thing, Terry. Oh.
Hi, Alicia.
In paragraph 6, the last sentence, it is not the one-mindedness of the Christ mind whose will is one with God's. I'm very confused by that.
Okay, let me just reread this.
It's sentence 3 in paragraph 6.
Okay, so it says wrong-mindedness listens to the ego, makes illusions. Both this world and the real world are illusions because right-mindedness merely overlooks or forgives what never happened. Therefore, it is not the one-mindedness of the Christ mind whose will is one with God's. I've got to figure out how you're reading that. Hold on. Wrong-mindedness listens to the ego and makes illusions, perceiving sin and justifying anger.
Yeah, the rest of it is just that last sentence because I thought that it was the one of the Christ mind whose will is one with God's. That's what I'm confused about. Just that last
sentence. I think it's saying it as in wrong-mindedness.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's just, yeah, I think it's
read it differently.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That makes sense.
Okay. You know, it's interesting because we're talking up here about words, and I know A Course in Miracles says words are but symbols of symbols. And when I first started doing A Course in Miracles, all of these words, God and Christ and Holy Spirit, to me were like, ugh, yuck. I'm not interested in any of these words. And it wasn't until I understood that words are but symbols of symbols that I could start changing my mind about these symbols that appear as words. So when I see Holy Spirit, you know I've shared some of this with you that who've been in my Course in Miracles study groups before. Holy Spirit to me is kind of like this umbilical cord that's like this cosmic goo that connects me to the one mind of God, right? Connects this separated self that I think I am in this ego body. It connects my mind with the one mind of God. So that's how I like to visualize the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm. Could I ask?
Sorry. So there's no such thing as a soul? We shouldn't be using that term anymore? It's only for biblical notations? You should be using spirit?
Yeah, that's what A Course in Miracles is saying, that soul is not used in this book except in direct biblical quotations because it's controversial. It's that word that's like a symbol of a symbol. And I think A Course in Miracles is choosing to use the word spirit in place of the word soul.
Duly noted.
Did somebody else want to talk?
Yeah.
In the original transcription, though, of the Course in Miracles, it does use the word soul. It just, from what it's saying, though, it had such strong meaning to people, and part of the idea of the Course is to let go of judgment and things, and we have to all realize that words resonate with us and have personal meanings. And so a lot of the time you just flip another word that's closer to the meaning for you, because the idea is to be in that state of being, and we typically get hung up on language and dissect it so much that it takes us away from the true purpose. And I think they found that with soul, that it just was too much of a diversion from the point.
Good point, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I had a question, please. Chapter 7, sentence 4 says that consciousness has levels and awareness can shift quite dramatically, but it cannot transcend the perceptual realm. Just like a bit of clarification on what we mean by the perceptual realm.
I think what that's referring to is that in this world of illusions, that's our perceptual realm. And that consciousness, because it has levels, it's only part of this world. So it can't transcend it into the realm of at one-ment or that one mind, where you are at one with God and in that place of pure love and non-duality. So
yeah, it says that it can become aware of the real world, and continue and can be trained to do so increasingly. But it doesn't transcend the perceptual world, although it can be aware of the real world.
Right. And I think that's because once you are in the real world where you are no longer in this place of duality, there's no need for consciousness.
Yeah.
Because you're just one.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no need for levels.
Yeah.
One of the best books I've ever read that has to do with consciousness is the book by David Hawkins, Power versus Force. And he actually goes into the levels of consciousness, which is so interesting and exciting, I think. And they're leveled on a scale of energetic vibration through kinesiology. So if any of you are interested in understanding the different levels of consciousness, he actually has created a map of consciousness that starts with shame at the very bottom and goes all the way up to enlightenment, and actually has logged it from an energetic level of consciousness based on kinesiology. I just find that so interesting.
What's the reference for that book?
The Power versus Force?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
The book you're just referring to.
Right, Power versus Force by David Hawkins. He created a map of consciousness.
And
it's because we were just talking about the levels of consciousness that go up and down, and the fact that it has levels, and that's why it can't reach.
Yeah, great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions before we move on? Okay.
I'm just making another reference for another good book for levels of consciousness is by Rudolf Steiner. It's a very old book, and it's called Theosophy. I learned quite a bit, but they use the term soul quite often, so that's the only discrepancy, but explains very well the levels of spirit, the level of consciousness without providing any tool. Back then, this book was written back in the late 30s, so there's not too much knowledge at that time, but he will, describe the different levels. I think is very interesting. I put it here on the comments. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that, Alberto.
Yeah, all the time.
Okay, anything else? Anyone else want to share anything before we continue? All right. Clarification of terms, the ego, the miracle. Illusions will not last. Their death is sure, and this alone is certain in their world. It is the ego's world because of this. What is the ego? But a dream of what you really are. A thought you are apart from your creator, and a wish to be what he created not. It is a thing of madness, not reality at all. A name for namelessness is all it is. A symbol of impossibility. A choice for options that do not exist. We name it, but to help us understand that it is nothing but an ancient thought, that what is made has immortality. But what could come of this except a dream, which, like all dreams, can only end in death? What is the ego? Nothingness, but in a form that seems like something. In a world of form, the ego cannot be denied, for it alone seems real. Yet could God's Son, as he created him, abide in form or in a world of form? Who asks you to define the ego and explain how it arose can be but he who thinks it real and seeks by definition to ensure that its elusive nature is concealed behind the words that seem to make it so. There is no definition for a lie that serves to make it true, nor can there be a truth that lies conceal effectively. The ego's unreality is not denied by words, nor is its meaning clear, because its nature seems to have a form. Who can define the undefinable? And yet there is an answer, even here. We cannot really make a definition for what the ego is, but we can say what it is not. And this is shown to us with perfect clarity. It is from this that we deduce all that the ego is. Look at its opposite, and you can see the only answer that is meaningful. The ego's opposite in every way, in origin, effect, and consequence, we call a miracle. And here we find all that is not the ego in this world. Here is the ego's opposite, and here alone we look on what the ego was. For here we see all that it seemed to do and cause its effects must still be one. Where there was darkness, now we see the light. What is the ego? What the darkness was. Where is the ego? Where the darkness was. What is it now, and where can it be found? Nothing and nowhere. Now the light has come, its opposite gone, without a trace. Where evil was, there now is holiness. What is the ego? What the evil was. Where is the ego? In an evil dream that but seemed real while you were dreaming it. Where there was crucifixion stands God's Son. What is the ego? Who has need to ask? Where is the ego? Who has need to seek for an illusion now that dreams are gone? What is a miracle? A dream as well, but look at all the aspects of this dream and you will never question anymore. Look at the kindly world you see extend before you as you walk in gentleness. Look at the helpers all along the way you travel, happy in the certainty of heaven and the surety of peace. And look an instant too on what you left behind at last and finally passed by. This was the ego, all the cruel hate, the need for vengeance and the cries of pain, the fear of dying and the urge to kill, the brotherless illusion and the self that seemed alone in all the universe. This terrible mistake about yourself, the miracle corrects as gently as a loving mother sings her child to rest. Is not a song like this what you would hear? Would it not answer all you thought to ask and even make the question meaningless? Your questions have no answer, being made to still God's voice, which asks of everyone one question only. Are you ready yet to help me save the world? Ask this instead of what the ego is, and you will see a sudden brightness cover up the world the ego made. No miracle is now withheld from anyone. The world is saved from what you thought it was. And what it is wholly uncondemned and wholly pure. The miracle forgives, the ego damns. Neither need be defined except by this. Yet could a definition be more sure or more in line with what salvation is? Problem and answer lie together here. And having met at last, the choice is clear. Who chooses hell when it is recognized? And who would not go on a little while when it is given him to understand the way is short and heaven is his goal? Okay, the room is open for comments, questions, discussions.
Well, it's almost 2 years ago now. It'll be 2 years in June. I had a conscious connection to source, and I now call myself resource of that. And there's a very detailed, long story, but to make it very short, I was seeing sort of a map of my life and given the ability to connect to source almost at will. At that point, it took some work to do it, but I could do it if I set my intention. And I was accelerated on my path, but there were a few things that I didn't understand, and I wanted to have a cognitive understanding of it. Lo and behold, about a little more than a year later, so August of last year, of 2020, I eventually was able to accept the other things that were being told to me, and that was that I just had to have the faith and the knowing and not be interested in the distractions of thought and dissecting it. And since then, from then to now, the whole process has become just who I am in being. And I can look at every aspect of the course and acknowledge the words that are used to try to explain it or try to help others to get there, but the gist is, it can almost be summed up in a few sentences, if not one, that if you open yourself up to and accept that you are one with God, that you are an individuation, and as such, you are the whole of God, you then open yourself up to receiving all of these miracles. And it comes easily once you take that leap, whereas you can look at it from the more ego way of thinking that we are broken and not that we are whole, and trying to fix each individual aspect of us that we think are not whole, and we try to get it right. If you come from the other way, the things just continue to show themselves to you and continue to align themselves with that state of being. And it's amazing the differences that I've been experiencing in my life as I live the course.
That's great, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sounds like a beautiful experience. And, and that's really what the course aims at, is, that universal experience. And that's why the lessons are so important too. And having experiences like that and sharing those experiences, I think, are so helpful to, to help people get some kind of an idea of what that feels like or looks like to have those types of experiences. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share or talk about anything before we move on?
Marilyn here. I'll just say that that's exactly what I was underlining as you spoke, that after when Mary finished speaking. Back in the introduction, in paragraph 4, it says, "Yet there is no answer, only an experience." So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, great.
One-mindedness right there.
That's it too, right? It's all about that experience of at-one-ment. And that's why I say that word like that. I know it's pronounced atonement. It's funny, my husband came to a Course in Miracles study group with me once. And when we were driving home, I said, "So what did you think?" He goes, "Yeah, it was interesting." He goes, "But everybody pronounced that word wrong. It's really atonement." I'm like, "Oh, yes, I know." So I like to clarify, I do understand it's pronounced atonement, but going back to the words are but symbols of symbols, I like to say at-one-ment because it makes it it makes more sense in my mind when I say at-one-ment. So, okay, let's continue.
I have a question. Hi, this is a quick question. I just was listening to Mary's account, and I was just wondering, when people talk about those experiences, like, what kind of experience are we talking about that would happen? Like, I hear that it's something that all these great things that will happen after reading the book and understanding this, but can someone give an example of these experiences?
Sure. I mean, I've had many experiences throughout my life, especially when I started doing A Course in Miracles and understanding the importance of forgiveness. I can give you an example of something that was truly life-changing for me. When I was younger, I was involved in a very abusive relationship, largely because I had that victim mindset, and that's what I was attracting into my life, from that place of I am not good enough, and I was trying to make everyone around me happy. Not that I'm downplaying the experience, but I had this very abusive relationship in my life for several years, and finally, when I was strong enough to get out of it, I had to have the person arrested 8 times for literally trying to kill me. And then I had these horrible nightmares for 10 years afterwards, where I would be paralyzed and he was stalking me and he was coming after me. And all the while I was, starting to practice A Course in Miracles near the end of this 10-year experience. And in this dream, I saw him in my dream, and my initial terror was there. However, I saw him through a window in a house, and he was having a loving conversation with a woman. And I was intrigued because I never thought that that would be something I would be able to see. So I went to the window and looked in the window, and now I was, you know, spying on him, so to speak. So in my dream, I was just looking at this interaction, thinking that he was probably going to be beating her or something, but it was very loving. And I was surprised by that. And then all of a sudden his face was right up at the window next to mine looking at me. And I had this initial feeling of, oh no, he saw me. And the house disappeared, and it was just the two of us looking at each other in my dream. And he said, I'm so sorry for everything I ever did to you. And my heart just opened up, and I just put my arms around him and I said, it's okay, I forgive you. And I woke up and I had this feeling like the weight of the world had lifted off my shoulders, and it was just in this forgiving dream. And I was so excited. I wanted to pick up the phone. I wanted to call him. I wanted to tell him I forgive him. But, you know, I still had this order of protection, and I thought, well, I don't really know where his ego mind is. I mean, in our minds that are joined, the forgiveness happened. I didn't need anything else to have my healing occur. But then here's the really miraculous part about this dream. 6 months later, he shows up at this athletic club that I'm working at. And he didn't just show up. This person that was trying to help him get off drugs and get his life back together had called the club first and had asked permission for him to come and work out at the club that he was trying to help him get his life together. And of course, I had had this miraculous dream 6 months earlier. So I was like, yes, of course, sure, no problem. I had no fear attached to the relationship anymore. So he came in, and I purposefully stayed in my office. I stayed away just to be out of sight. And afterwards, the gentleman that was working with him said, look, he would like to talk to you and just thank you for this opportunity. Is that okay with you? And I said, sure. So we went into this space that was private, and it was crazy. He looked at me and he said, I just want to tell you, I'm so sorry for everything I ever did to you. And it was just like the dream. And I wrapped my arms around him and I said, it's okay, I forgive you. And we both like sobbed a little bit, you know, just because of that experience. And he has gone on to do amazing things in his life. He got his life together. He's now helping people who, you know, are in bad situations turn their life around. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm saying these experiences, right? Like, it was a dream, and I had this loving experience of this healing that happened through forgiveness, forgiving the dream, forgiving this illusion. And of course, you know, it still doesn't transcend consciousness. I've had other dreams like that where I have transcended consciousness. I've had dreams of, or I've had experiences in meditations where I've jumped into black holes, where I've been in that place of at-one-ment. So it's just little things that build and build and build that open your mind and open your eyes to just a different way of looking at the world. Does that help to answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm very new to this, so I'm just, you know, curious about where this is going. You know, I understand, I hear great things about it, but being that this is the very beginning of my journey, I'm trying to see I can't imagine what those things would be in real life. You know, that's fun.
Right. And I think they come to you as you're ready to experience them. And at that time in my life, I was ready for that healing. It kind of was like the path on my path to enlightenment, on my path to expanding my consciousness and my awareness and undoing the fear, right? That I still was so, you know, entrenched in. Marilyn, did you want to share something? I saw your hand kind of wave. Maybe you were just saying hello.
No, absolutely. I wanted to simplify that entire story, because the simple answer is, for the woman who asked the question, what is the experience? In my mind, the experience is, and not, see, forgiveness is the way of experience, but in my mind, the experience is peace of mind. That is the goal of the Course in Miracles. So whatever calamities, situations, people, places, things present themselves to us, that the experience is going to be immediate peace of mind. This is happening and I do not have to judge it. I do not have to react to it. And so that is the experience, I think, that we can all have by studying the Course. Non-judgment and forgiveness immediately. Peace of God is the goal.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
I want to piggyback on that a bit, if I could. I'm a teacher, and like I see in everything. I see, learning moments, or like, so when we talk about experiences, and I immediately go to what can we learn from our experiences, and experiential learning, which is really one of the most powerful methods for teaching, for pedagogy, is having the students experience what they are learning. And how do they do that? By touch, by smell, by memory, by music, by using our senses. And this makes total sense to me, because, okay, when you are engrossed, when you're embedded in an experience and you're feeling it with your body, so depending which senses are being triggered, that's going to help us to come to that end point of whatever the end result will be. So in this case, it's peace of mind. But this is how we move forward. It's by being aware, learning what we are actually experiencing, and moving forward with that.
That's great share, Christina. Yeah, it truly is all about the experience and embodying that. I thank you so much for sharing that. That's such good information. Anyone else want to share before we continue? Okay, let's keep going. And I see already we're talking about forgiveness in the face of Christ, which is so funny because it seems like every time we have discussions, the very next section kind of piggybacks on what we've been talking about. So that's another thing I love about A Course in Miracles. Okay, forgiveness in the face of Christ. Forgiveness is for God and toward God, but not of him. It is impossible to think of anything he created that could need forgiveness. Forgiveness, then, is an illusion. But because of its purpose, which is the Holy Spirit's, it has one difference. Unlike all other illusions, it leads away from error and not towards it. Forgiveness might be called a kind of happy fiction, a way in which the unknowing can bridge the gap between their perception and the truth. They cannot go directly from perception to knowledge because they do not think it is their will to do so. This makes God appear to be an enemy instead of what he really is. And it is just this insane perception that makes them unwilling merely to rise up and to return to him in peace. And so they need an illusion of help because they are helpless, a thought of peace because they are in conflict. God knows what his son needs before he asks. He is not at all concerned with form, but having given the content, it is his will that it will be understood, and that suffices. The form adapts itself to need. The content is unchanging, as eternal as its creator. The face of Christ has to be seen before the memory of God can return. The reason is obvious. Seeing the face of Christ involves perception. No one can look on knowledge, but the face of Christ is the great symbol of forgiveness. It is salvation. It is the symbol of the real world. Whoever looks on this no longer sees the world. He is as near to heaven as is possible outside the gate. Yet from this gate, it is no more than just a step inside. It is the final step. And this we leave to God. Forgiveness is a symbol too, but as the symbol of his will alone, it cannot be divided. And so the unity that it reflects becomes his will. It is the only thing still in the world in part, and yet the bridge to heaven. God's will is all there is. We can but go from nothingness to everything, from hell to heaven. Is this a journey? No, not in truth, for truth goes nowhere. But illusions shift from place to place, from time to time. The final step is also but a shift. As a perception, it is part unreal, and yet this part will vanish. What remains is peace, eternal, and the will of God. There are no wishes now, for wishes change. Even the wished for can become unwelcome. That must be so because the ego cannot be at peace. But will is constant as the gift of God, and what he gives is always like himself. This is the purpose of the face of Christ. It is the gift of God to save his son. But look on this, and you have been forgiven. How lovely does the world become in just that single instant when you see the truth about yourself reflected there. Now you are sinless, and behold your sinlessness. Now you are holy, and perceive it so. And now the mind returns to its creator, the joining of the Father and the Son, the unity of unities that stands behind all joining, but beyond them all. God is not seen, but only understood. His Son is not attacked, but recognized. Okay, let's open the room back up again for conversation.
So there's so much there. Sin not being something bad, sin just being a mistake, a mischoosing, if we will, an example of how we can choose again to realign ourselves with spirit, and that leads to self-acceptance and to then peace and joy as we realize we are one with God. But the whole thing about the mountain and the forgiveness, if you will, that when we apply that, it's a tool that we use to move the obstruction, to move the mountain. And when we free up that energy, what goes into that space is then that peace in the acceptance and the joy in the feeling of being that which was truly meant for us to be. And so that it leads to gratitude. And as you express the gratitude, it recycles so that you get more and more of it. And you just appreciate everything. It's no longer a threat to you, nor is it make you more or lesser than anything else. It all just is. And it's an amazing experience. And as people were asking before or stating before about the issues of just the experience part, when you start to feel so joy-filled and peace-filled, that's the experience you want. So if you start becoming more of an ego, more of a dualistic experience, you realize that doesn't feel comfortable. It no longer resonates with you. You feel the energy shift, and you can just change back to that which is whole and perfect in and of itself.
Thank you for sharing that, Mary. Yeah. I always find it interesting that when we have these discussions, the very next thing talks about what we've discussed, and bringing up what Marilyn had said about peace and then the forgiveness aspect of it that leads to the peace is just so interesting to me. Shall we continue going, or would anybody else like to bring up something that's coming up for them?
Me.
Yay.
I wanted to say that for me, the face of Christ, you get the picture of that iconic picture of Jesus. And do we believe that that is, I do not believe that is the face of Christ. And I wanted to clarify how I see the face of Christ is that I look in the mirror, and it says at the very end of this, in paragraph 8, that how lovely does the world become in just that single instant when you see the truth about yourself reflected there. So the self, the higher self, is the face of Christ, that we can look in the mirror, look right through the third eye and see Christ there. Christ's face is not that picture of Jesus, y'all.
Yes. Great point, Marilyn. I always like to go to the glossary so that I don't put my ego spin on A Course in Miracles. But yes, I think you're right on the mark there. And I'll share what A Course in Miracles says about the face of Christ, because it's true. And it really also reflected in the dream I had of the boyfriend who was initially, I pictured him as this horrible, monstrous person that I was afraid of. And in my dream, I feel like I saw the face of Christ in him, which allowed me to forgive, have that dream of forgiveness where I felt peace. And I'll explain, as A Course in Miracles describes, face of Christ is the symbol of forgiveness, the face of true innocence seen in another when we look through Christ's vision, free from our projections of guilt. Thus, it is the extension to others of the guiltlessness we see in ourselves, independent of what our physical eyes may see. No, it's not to be confused with the face of Jesus, nor with anything external. So yes, it's that face of true innocence that we see in another, just that face of love that we honor and see in our brother. So
we have to see it in ourselves first in order to be able to see the face of Christ in every other brother out there.
That is true, but I also find in A Course in Miracles, it always says you cannot get to heaven's gate without your brother. So I think the brother is such an integral learning component. It's almost like it happens simultaneously, that as you see that forgiveness in yourself, you see that Christ in your brother. And I think the reversal is true. When you can see that love in your brother and see your brother as innocent, you end up letting go of whatever you held onto in your heart that you were trying to imprison him in, like be the jailer, as it says in A Course in Miracles in another chapter. Did you want to share something, Christina?
Yeah, well, I'm very new to this. I've had the book for years, but I haven't read it, so I'm very new to this whole thing. But I don't know if you Art of Living, another philosophy organization, I don't know what, spiritual awareness. There's an exercise we do in that it's just not Christ. We call it God. And it's being able to, look at your partner, look at your person next to you, whoever it is, and imagine that it's God. You're looking into God's eyes. You're looking into the face of God. And we do this around the room with everyone. And it's a very, very powerful exercise. But in Art of Living, the word is God. And so it's very strange for me to use the word Christ instead. And it's because to me, they're not the same thing. And I don't think they're the same thing here either, but it's an interesting perspective. It's different. Just the terminology. I think terminology is something I'm really going to have to get used to because it's so, it's different, and of course, change is always hard to accept.
Yeah, great point. I'm so glad you brought that up because as I said earlier, a lot of this terminology really turned me off from getting involved in A Course in Miracles early on because not only was I not comfortable with the word Christ, I wasn't comfortable with the word Jesus or God or Holy Spirit or any of these, I called them church words, right? The church was not something I was ever involved in or anything I was ever interested in being involved with. So yes, it's definitely another symbol of a symbol. And I'm going to read again from this glossary, the definition of Christ, which I think will be helpful. So Christ is defined by A Course in Miracles as the second person of the Trinity, the one Son of God, or totality of the sonship, the self that God created by extension of his spirit through Christ creates, as does his Father. He is not the Father, since God created Christ, but Christ did not create God. Note, not to be equated exclusively with Jesus. So, and this is actually not even a great clarification in my mind of what Christ is, but it's almost like we are all one with God. And the fact that, you know, it breaks it down to Christ, Holy Spirit. I mean, all of those words just go back to one word in my mind, which is love, right? That one mind of love, that one mind of source energy, the universe, God, you know, meaning all the same thing in my mind. But I think it breaks it down more so for people who have been conditioned into a Christian base faith training to help them kind of understand how the Trinity works. Even the Trinity was a foreign word to me before I got involved with A Course in Miracles.
But also, isn't it that in Christianity and absolutely in Catholicism, Roman Catholic, that Christ and Jesus became sort of synonymous, if you will, and yet they were not. It was Jesus the Christ, not Jesus Christ, as if that is, he was in connection with, he was able to be the Christ, but he wasn't as Jesus. He was the man, Jesus, who had the connection to the sonship, to the whole, as the Christ. But we were sort of taught, those of us who were in those religious denominations were sort of misled, if you will, or taught a little differently. And so therein is the, you know, the definition or the explanation for it.
Right.
And it's Christ consciousness that we talk about here. So the Christ consciousness reflects the will, if you will, of God. It is all of us as the sonship participating in God.
Yeah, good point, Mary. Appreciate that coming from your perspective of being in that place of indoctrination into a lot of more of the religious aspect of the words. So thank you.
I think of Christ as the creation, which of course does include all of us because we're all part of the sonship. Christ is, for me, is like the creation of God. Does that resonate?
I think it's the one mind of God that created, right, the Christ mind, but then somehow it went out into individual beings that then thought they were separated, you know, when we forgot that we were part of that Christ mind and became this dual experience of the one mind of Christ, the one mind of God.
Yeah, that's the illusion, but that doesn't change the creation, does it?
The creation of the yeah, we can get into that more too.
Which is the sonship.
The sonship, right.
Right. Yeah.
I agree.
Good point. Thank you for sharing that, Freddie.
Can I just ask about the glossary? Is that a separate book?
Yes, this is a separate book, and I love this book. I used to have all of these pieces of paper printed that I carried around with me to all of my Course in Miracles study groups, because when people would ask questions, you know, a lot of people would answer, but they were coming from their own filters, and I wanted to make sure that I was getting the unfiltered answer from A Course in Miracles to share with everyone. And this is, yes, very, very helpful, because it talks about all of the different explanations, as well as where you can find it in the book.
I'd like to get that.
Yeah, you can order it from Amazon, probably also for the Foundation for Inner Peace.
Yeah. Is it called the Glossary of Terms?
It's called Glossary Index for A Course in Miracles. And this is the 8th edition, and it's from Ken Wapnick.
Okay, thank you.
You can get that for from the Foundation for A Course in Miracles. And
thank you.
You're welcome. I grew up in upstate New York, so I fortunately was able to go and see Ken speak several times in Roscoe, and that was quite a treat. It was really like a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, shall we carry on? Oh gosh, we only have 2 minutes. Let's see how big this, let's see. Oh, I went backwards. Sorry, guys. Went the wrong way with my arrows. Skip through here real quick. True perception and knowledge. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit more than we have time to read today. So I think what we'll do is we'll save that for next time. And we'll continue with true perception and knowledge, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great conversation around that as well. But I wanted to keep this room open a little bit longer, just to say hello and allow people to introduce themselves if they want to share a little bit more about themselves. People are willing or wanting to stay on. Feel free. If you have to go, I understand. We usually have our course from 12:30 to 1:30, and I appreciate all of you who have joined today. So if anybody wants to share, feel free to unmute themselves and introduce yourself. Love to hear how you came to A Course in Miracles, or anything else you'd like to share. Everybody's being quiet.
I got to drop out, but I want to introduce myself. Alberto Sanchez. I live in South Texas, and this is my first time I tried this course, and it seems to be terrific. There's a lot of information. I will say too much to chew in a single session. Normally I use the videos that I got later on email to go slowly on those. But I'm glad to be here, and I got to drop out. I got some other things to attend here at work. I will see you guys next week.
Great, thank you, Alberto.
Peace out.
I have to run too. My name's Alicia. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi. Yeah, I was part of Terry.
Alicia.
Oh, hi, Mary. I was part of Terry's study group starting, oh, cripe, it's coming up on 11 years ago. So I started way back when, and every single time I sign on for another class, I always learn something new, and it's a wonderful growth experience. So anybody who's new and it seems like we're speaking a different language, just hang with it, because after a while it does kind of gel in your brain. and then the hard part of the fun part comes when you have to apply what you've got in your noggin. So I have to run, but I'll look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Thanks for joining, Alicia.
My pleasure. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Carol. I came on a little late, and sometimes that will happen with my schedule. So I appreciate being here. I was introduced to the course way back in the 70s, and I have been with Terry and other groups. And what I really like about the book, when I get caught up in the words and the semantics and the symbols and the history and all this, I just flip the switch and I find peace. And I think that's what it's all about, is your perception is to just flip the switch into God's will and to recognize that it's all about undoing, because even the Course says we don't need all this, but we do it to have a richer understanding as we share, but we really don't need it. We just need to flip the switch.
Yeah. Simple, but not easy.
It's simple, but not easy. So hanging out with conversations like this is really helpful.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yes, I was introduced to the course about 20 years ago. I was interested in the work of Chuck Spezzano. Have you heard of Chuck Spezzano?
No.
Well, he was an American psychologist who was very influenced by A Course in Miracles, and he would run workshops. And that's where I got interested in the course. His workshops were very expensive. So after I'd done 50 days of workshops, I went in a new direction, and I went into the interfaith seminary. The interfaith seminary is where they train up people to be like private. Well, the spiritual counseling is one side of it, but doing ceremonies for people, like blessing their homes and that kind of thing, which I wasn't interested in. I was more interested in the spiritual psychology. Anyway, recently I saw somebody who was running a Course in Miracles study group. It's another one I'm doing. And so I'm just getting back into the course now. And very happy to be here. And I like the way you run your group. It goes a little bit quick, but if I know what's going to be coming, I shall read it, because there's an awful lot to absorb.
Yeah.
And maybe I would like to sort of double down on some of the sentences, but you know, you're obviously very experienced when it comes to reading the course.
Thank you, Freddie. It's so great to have you here. Yeah, I've been doing this for, like I said, over 28 years. I've been facilitating groups for 25. So not sure if that means I'm a slow learner or I just enjoy it.
Well, I'm going to go now, but thanks for having me, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Freddie. Great to meet you. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Hey, Terry. I just want to say hi. I'm just, I'm Lizette. I reached out to you through email, and I found this group through your 2020 Clarity originally, and been following along and really liking it. I just, I'm doing a study group through Facebook, and they're doing the lessons. So it started on February 1st. So we're up to, today would be the 15th lesson. And I guess we're in this group, we're looking at the text right now, right? Is the lessons coming? Did I miss something with the lessons part?
So I don't do the lessons purposefully because I want people to do the lessons on their own. And I didn't even mention that today. I usually do because the lessons should be done in order from the beginning to end. Right. 2 years ago, I did all of the lessons, one every day, 365 days, Facebook Live. So I do have another private study group called A Year in Miracles. And as my lessons come up as my memories of 2 years ago, I reshare them over there. Okay. So I've been doing that try to do that every day this year so people can relook at them. I also have uploaded all of them to my YouTube channel. So if you're looking for, you know, another resource for doing the lessons, you can feel free to check that out. I usually try to give a little bit of an analogy around the lessons or what it, you know, how I experience it, because again, you know, the course is an experiential teaching. It wants you to take those lessons and, you know, put them into your daily practice and try to use them for whatever's coming up for you for that day. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and it's great to have you here, Liz. Thank you so much.
I'm happy to finally make it. I was using it the phone so I could walk around the house, but now I was able to get to the actual computer. So.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Great to meet you in person, kind of ish.
Yeah.
Another way I used to do the lessons is with James Twyman, and he did a year of the lessons in music. And that was several years ago, but I found that if you listen to the lessons with him singing it, and then he gave a conceptualization of it, it stuck real well. But yeah, I'm doing them. I do them every year, and I'm doing them again. My name is Marilyn, and I have been studying for 20 years, and always learning something new as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Marilyn, for sharing that.
I'm a complete newbie.
Yay!
I think I had always heard about it and wondered about it, and quite a few years ago, I don't know when she left, a dear woman. I live in Greece, everybody. I'm in Greece right now, and I'm from Baltimore, but I live in Greece. And a dear lovely woman that I met here many years ago. She's left now. Now she's in the UK, but she had amazing woman. I mean, she must be 95 now, and she still has the energy of, just amazing woman. But I remember I would go to her. She would host meditation circles and different things. And when she left Greece, she, was selling everything. And so I got this book from her. Oh. And this is, it's a 1975 edition. Wow. So I have no idea when you talk about page numbers, because they don't correlate to this. And neither does, I couldn't find actually what we were going through today. Because I don't know if it's organized the same way or not. I don't know. I need to, sit down and review it and look at the online version, compare it to this one. But it's, I'm just, I'm very, actually it just popped up. I'm never on Facebook anymore, but unless it's work related. But then I saw, I had joined a group. I don't remember when. And then I saw, somebody had posted in A Course in Miracles, like, oh, what's that? And then I saw a couple different, postings, and I have actually signed up to the, where you get every day, a lesson in your inbox. Mm-hmm. And I've had that for a couple of years, and I don't have time to read them. And I really don't, I can't do it by myself. I just can't. So I've been looking for something like this to, to be able, and I have to be, so many people are complaining about, well, you just hear a lot of complaining in general right now around everywhere where we are. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for this whole new method of communication across borders, and that's connecting people, because this would not be possible. I don't know if you've been doing this on Zoom, for how long it's been on Zoom, but generally Zooming has not been something that was done before COVID. And I'm just really grateful for Zooming, even though it's so incredibly tiring on my eyes, and I'm really tired right now, but I'm just grateful. So I'm really excited to have found you guys. And I'm glad that I can make it, time-wise, because that's another thing.
I'm so glad you're here. And that's the one thing that's so exciting about Zoom, is you get to have rooms with people from Greece, from Spain, from the UK, from all over the world. And it's just, it's amazing how it's allowed all of us to come together. This is the first time I've done a virtual Course in Miracles study group. I did not do them virtually before this. So, it's one of those things where the universe just is always there, kind of knocking on your door and giving you opportunities to connect. So thank you. It's wonderful to have you here.
Zoom has been an amazing gift for me. I'm merry like Merry Christmas, and I'm blind. So not having to deal with transportation and being on a level playing field with everyone, because I do things by voice anyway. So Zoom has been amazing for me. I've been a student of the course for 6 years. I actually joined Terry's group when it was in Binghamton, New York, and then had my experience with living it, as I mentioned today, almost 2 years ago, and that's put me in a whole different place. I'm active in at least 6 different ACIM groups now on Zoom, plus several other metaphysical belief groups. I co-lead 2 of them, and we do everything from learning the course almost a sentence at a time and discussing it, definitely a paragraph at a time and discussing it in one of the groups, to another one encouraging people to really take that leap and start living the course, to another one where a lot of us are, and we sort of support each other in remembering that and the excitement of the experiences. So all kinds of levels of the course. And this is one, and Terry's been dedicated for a long time. So some of us know each other who participate in Terry's group because we used to in person. So thanks, Terry. And I just wanted to ask you, Terry, are you doing anything to advertise on Meetup at all? Because that's a great way to put the word out.
It's a good idea. I have not, but I will definitely look into that. Thank you for reminding me. That's not an app I usually use, but I'll check that out. Thank you.
So we can invite people from other groups in here, or is this already is there a max amount of people, or how does that work?
Oh, we can have as many as we want. My Zoom is, I don't really know, but I know it's well over 100 and I'm not there yet. So,
okay.
So yes, feel free to share this with other people that you think might be interested.
I already did that.
Yeah.
This one lady in my other group that I've been attending in person, or had been up until last year. But I did want to share with Christina that I have the second edition, and it was printed in 1996. So your first edition is truly old. No page numbers.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to add to that, Christina, is the newer editions are combined volumes, and the combined volumes have the preface, the text, the workbook for students, the manual for teachers, the clarification of terms, and the supplements. And the supplements are really fun too. The supplements are the process of healing, the process of psychotherapy, prayer is another supplement. And I think that's it.
Song of prayer.
This one, this says it's I don't know if you can see, it says the text, the workbook for students, and manual for teachers.
Okay, so you've got
that's what I have.
Okay, you've got 3. So you don't have the clarification of terms or the supplements.
Right, that's what I would need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page numbers.
So I'll need to figure out how you can get a hold of those.
I mean, you can get them on that site that I was using when we were reading that Course in Miracles Now, if you just want to read them on the computer. But I think you can get them. I'm not sure. I'm sure you get other ways of getting books out there, right?
I would, yeah. I mean, I try to stay away from Amazon. So like bookdepository.com has and it's nice. They do free shipping, so it's nice. Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Awesome.
Hi, so I'm Ali. I'm sorry, my video is not working in the computer, but I love finding Terry's group. I found it through a good friend who's a yoga teacher, and I took classes for the course in a group 10 years ago when I was living in Mexico, and I did feel shifts in my I would call them miracles, ways I would see things and would damage myself, I would eventually change. And then all of a sudden I fell off it, and I didn't read it or pick up the book for 8 years or 7 years. And when I was ready this year, with all the introspection I guess we're all having with COVID and a lot of time to think, I was thinking of going back to the course. And that's when I met through this friend Terry's group, and finally I just started. And I love just how you are very clear, Terry, on reading it and getting all the words translated to practical understanding, because I do find, like Christina, I've studied in Spanish and English, and I found English is easier for me, but still the words can feel fluffy at times, and just landing them helps me so much, having Terry's guidance. And as Mary said, I'm so grateful with Zoom, because I think one of the deterrents for me was, where do I find a group and then take the time? And then I used to live in San Francisco, so I had to travel to the other side of the Bay Area, 1 hour to get there. And then eventually, like, you find all these excuses. And just having Zoom, it's like, you're here and the world is together. And I'm so grateful that, Terry, that you're doing this. It's just, I'm ready to like reshift my attention. And today's lesson was so good, because I always have a hard time defining the ego, what it is. And I feel I'm trapped there a lot. So just today helped just clarifying, understanding. You kind of see it from afar a little bit and hopefully step out of it at times. So that's great. And then I do have one quick question, because I came into the course later. Like, I know we're finishing the book. Is it starting again, Terry, or when does it start? Because I'm so eager to, keep going.
Sure, and that's a great question. So when I first received the book, I received it in the mail wrapped in a brown paper bag from my brother's ex-boyfriend. They had just broke up, and he sent me the Course in Miracles wrapped in a bag. We talked about it a little bit, and he was explaining it to me when they were together. And I said, oh no, I wouldn't be interested in that. I don't read those. That seems too biblical for me. And he sent it to me anyway, right? So he sent it to me, and he said, with a Post-it note that said, I think you're going to need this with everything that you're going to be going through in your life. And I thought, that's an interesting thing to say. So I was thumbing through it, and I started, obviously in the beginning of the book with the text, and I was like, oh, these words just seem really foreign. I went into the workbook for students, and I thought, okay, I get it. 365, one for every day. Seemed interesting. Then I went to the back to the manual for teachers, and I started reading that, and it was like, that was the hook. It hooked me. So I literally just started this group in December, but we started reading the manual for teachers first. So what we'll do is, as soon as we're done with the clarifications of terms, we'll go back to the beginning and start reading there. So you have joined at the perfect time. We're going to be starting from the beginning as soon as we're done with all of these clarification for terms. And I would also encourage you to be doing the lessons. Start with the first lesson and do them in order, because they do build on each other. And they'll also support what we'll be reading here and in the text when we start from the beginning. I've started doing the Course in Miracles. I started reading it when I was pregnant with my son. My son turned 28 in October. So I've been reading this for 29 years. I started facilitating Course in Miracles study groups because after I read it the first time, I thought I had it and could just create the best life I could create. And then, of course, life is always pulling you, right? And I started making bad decisions, and my life started going off track again. And I knew better, but I didn't have that daily practice. So that's when I started facilitating A Course in Miracles study groups, because it kept me accountable. If I had to show up even for one person, I had to do the work. So I get it when you guys are saying, I stopped doing it. I just didn't make time. I didn't want to get in my car and drive, because it's easy to get distracted and pulled away and like, oh, this is more important. Well, no, I have to do this tonight. And oh, I should really be working instead, or my kids need me to do this other thing. It's easy to make excuses, but when you have to show up because people depend on you, you just have to do it. So that's what I did 25 years ago. And that's why I continue to facilitate. So as much I appreciate all of you saying that you appreciate me, but I truly appreciate all of you, because you are the reason why I show up to do this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. I actually had a question. As a newbie, I'm like Christina, I just starting, other than the fact that I've done some of the lessons so far, but I haven't gone through the text. And just as far as like for someone who's experienced, or anyone who's experiencing this, the ultimate goals is my really big question of where we're going with this. As you can imagine, the lessons take you step by step, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, it seems where the end result is going to be someone who just accepts everything and can't and sees this world as a fantasy, and that the life is more than what we see. But how do you I don't know if I could verbalize what I'm trying to say, but how do you deal with like real life, you know, because I know there might be more to this, but in reality, but we're still day to day. I have kids, you know, I have a husband, we've got, you know, goals and things that we have to do. And how do you do that? Like, how do you?
Yeah. So I started reading this when I was pregnant with my second child. My first one was a toddler, and I was in a marriage that wasn't great. I mean, I fell in love with my Prince Charming, who, you know, I thought was, you know, I was going to live happily ever after. You know, I believed in that Cinderella fairy tale, and life just wasn't working out that way. And I couldn't figure out why not. Why was it not working out when I was trying so hard to make everybody around me happy, right? Ding, 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 red flag, you know? And Course in Miracles came into my life, and it's like, oh, it's not about them, it's about you, right? So as you start making these little changes inside of yourself, as you start realizing that everything, your 60,000 thoughts a day, right? You have approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. You can choose love or fear. It all goes back to you. Yes, you have free will. You can choose fear all day long, but that will create more fear. You can choose love, and that will create more love. Is it not always easy to choose love in situations where you're getting triggered because that frightened part of your personality is feeling unworthy, not good enough, not smart enough? Yeah, it's really difficult to be able to choose love when you're feeling all of those things. But A Course in Miracles is the gradual undoing of all of that. And if you do the lessons systematically, it'll help you to let go and undo and unlearn a lot of those fear-based things that were a part of our early conditioning by people who were trying to help us, protect us from this horrible, mean, awful world, toughen us up, make us strong. And a lot of them did that lovingly, but the result is it is taught us to align with fear instead of love. We need to unlearn that process. And instead we need to learn how to align with love so that we can live this life of happiness. So you're saying it's a fantasy world that we're trying to create. No, it's actually undoing of this fear-based horrible nightmare that we're living that doesn't need to be this nightmare. When we change the way we look at the world we look at changes. And that's where you get heaven on earth. That is the goal. So you want to change your fear-based thoughts to love-based thoughts. And you do that simply by making a conscious choice to align with love instead of fear. I do that every morning. Getting to the practical level, before I get out of bed, I say 3 things I'm grateful for. When you choose love, you can't be in a place of choosing fear because they're polar opposites. So if you think of 3 things you're grateful for in the morning, instead of, oh my God, how am I going to pay this bill? Oh my God, I have to deal with this employee today, or this boss today, or oh my God, my kid is sick and it's, you know, freaking me out. You have to stop that chatter in your mind and consciously choose love. I'm grateful for my pillow. I'm grateful for this cup of coffee. I'm grateful for this cat that's kind of annoying, but loves me to pieces, right? So there's your cat, right? But it's just the conscious choice in knowing that you can make those conscious choices. And by continuing to do that on a regular basis, the world you look at will change because your energetic vibration is going to change, and the things you attract into your world will change. And it goes back to what, who was it? Jack Canfield, right? Said, when you start resonating from this place of love, doors start to open before you where there were no doors before. People start coming into your life, new people, new experiences, new opportunities. You attract different vibrations as you raise your energetic consciousness, which is what we were talking about earlier with that map of consciousness, right? And you can see where you are on the map when you look, like you're in that place of victimhood. When I was younger, my mother was an alcoholic. My father died when I was young. I moved out of my house when I was 15 years old and declared myself an independent minor just to move in with an abusive boyfriend, right? Because my mind wasn't changed yet. I was still operating from that place of fear. So of course, I'm going to attract those experiences into my life until you learn how to attract love by choosing love at every moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get that. The beginning of this course of the lessons part, when they talk about, it seems like the undoing, you know, when right. When they talk about things being not real. I mean, that's where I'm getting stuck in now too. I'll have to read. Maybe I can speak better when I read it on my own.
Question for you, Liz, and this is what another group that I'm in does. We read the introduction every time. The very first introduction at the beginning of the book. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. And it goes on to say the course does not aim to teach the meaning of love, for that is far beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, to removing the blocks to love's awareness, the awareness of love's presence, which is our natural inheritance. So it's just a little paragraph. And it goes on to say for this fantasy thing, nothing real can be threatened. In other words, anything that God has created cannot be threatened. Nothing unreal exists, meaning everything we create around here is going to turn to dust. Herein lies the peace of God. So the introduction every day, even before.
Can I add to that too, that when we talk about things being an illusion, that's a tool that's used, a mechanism to help us let go of judgment, to help us look at what's beyond the grip that living in this earthly plane has on us. But it is just a tool. I tend to look at it as like a trip to an amusement park where I know I can be, or a masquerade ball where you can choose to be happy or fearful or whatever when you see these masks, but underneath that, there's a person who you probably know, and you also know that you can leave that party and be safe and whole, that you're not controlled by those things that you're participating in. And that, to me, is part of what is being stressed by the illusion. It's not that when I find people get stuck in thinking that, the world means nothing, that an illusion equates to nothing, and therefore when we go beyond that, we have no place in the world. We're just like, la, la, la. But in fact, it's the whole thing about the Course is it shows us these opposites all the time and being counterintuitive. So when you get further on the path, you have much clearer vision about what it is that you are motivated to do versus getting involved and distracted by many things that kind of get in the way. They become the obstacles of who you are and what your purposes are. So you don't disengage from your family or from the world at all. It really is being so present that you are experiencing the heaven here and now.
Okay, yeah, no, that's really good, because that's where I'm at. I was at the stuck point. I'm trying to just right in the middle, and I'm trying to follow this the way it says and not think too deeply on it. Each exercise they tell you to do 3 or 4 times and let it go. But yeah, that illusion part is just like what happened was there was a video. One of the study groups we have, she does mini videos each day and chooses a different person from YouTube, and this one person had this way that I just don't agree with. And he kept mentioning that there's no reason to have goals in life. You know, that this is just an illusion of this life. And I just like, that doesn't sound right at all. You know, I think, I don't know, I guess people could take it to different levels and maybe that works for him, but it did not resonate with me. And I'm like thinking I know there's more to this because people I respect and who love the book and said good things about it. I was like, it can't be that your goal is to be goalless and just walk through life like everything's fake, you know? That's where I was.
Yeah, that's a good point. And to that, you know, I think the early lessons are a little bit confusing and they're scary because you're trying to you're trying to accept something that is so foreign to you. Like when they say this pen is not this pen, you know, they're really trying to tell you that this pen is only this pen because it holds all of your past experiences of using this pen. You know, I know this pen because I've written with it before. I know this pen because I've taken it apart before. But that's the only reason why you think this pen is a pen is because it's your past that you've written on the pen. It's trying to get you to undo the past and undo the future and just focus on now and give yourself a blank slate. And I remember being at that point, the first time I went through A Course in Miracles, I literally put the book down and was like, that thing is trying to brainwash me. I'm not doing it. Like, I don't, it's scaring me and I don't want my whole world to disappear and I'm not going to be part of this cult. And that's, you know, all those scary thoughts that were going on in my mind. And I literally put it down and didn't read it for like months. And then something was going on in my life and I picked it up and I just started reading it again. I was like, oh man, I really need to read this book. Because every time I would read the book, the course is highly vibrationally energetic with love, the highest you can get on the vibrational scale. So that's the other thing that's interesting about this book is you can't be in fear when you read this book because it resonates with love. So it's just the whole thing is so interesting once you get into it, and just give yourself time to do the lessons. And like they say, you don't have to agree with them. And there's some that you will adamantly disagree with. And it's okay. You don't have to make yourself agree with them. Just go with the flow, then go on to the next lesson. And eventually it'll all start making sense. It's kind of like when you start a new job and you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to get this. And everything's up here. And then eventually, like after your first month is over, you're like, oh, this makes sense now. Oh, this makes sense now. But when you're first doing a new task, nothing seems to make sense. It's like all up there someplace, but it'll eventually come down. It'll all make sense and it'll start to flow in a more comfortable way.
Yeah, that's great. I like that analogy of the job, and also when the caller mentioned the masquerades. That's that kind of brings it back in. So.
Guys, it was nice to meet you all. I have to go.
Okay, Christina, thanks so much.
I hope to be back next week.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Okay, I think we've heard from almost everyone. Angelina, did you want to pipe in and say hello again?
Yeah, hi. Oh, she just left. Who's gonna tell her that I'm from Spain? I don't know. I guess I have a question about fear. It's like what happened. Although I was in the spiritual journey for many years. Like a few months ago, there was like some sort of like, I don't know, you can say fall from grace. And there was some sort of stress and a disappointment about something. And then I just started having physical symptoms of like in the nervous system, and then it turned into headaches, and I still have some sort of like, it's a bit better than it was, but it's still present. And it brought up a lot of fear. And I realized, well, my main issue is fear. And my main fear is around survival. And I know the body is not, and in my faith, and even in my spiritual experiences, I know I'm not a body. I have a body, but I know I'm beyond the body because I had those experiences. But when the ego takes the grip of fear, this is the most unconvincing, you know, I'm totally convinced by that fear voice. And that's kind of where I'm feeling stuck at the moment. And almost to the moment there was a little place there, almost losing hope, kind of like feeling, oh, is that it? I'm stuck in that grip and I wouldn't be able to get out of it. So yeah, that's kind of like, that's kind of.
Sure, I understand. I was in that place of that dark night of the soul myself for many months. I lost hope in the world. I lost faith in the world. That was that point where I'd finally stopped looking for Prince Charming and thought, well, this stinks. Why have this illusory life if nothing's real and there's no Prince Charming that's going to show up? I'm not going to have my soulmate. Like, why do I want to sign up for this? And, you know, that was my experience. And I got very depressed for many months and have developed a lot of body illnesses, couldn't get out of bed, felt like I had the chains on me. And it wasn't until I had a moment where a good friend of mine reminded me that I was perfect and whole and complete, and he saw the light in me. And because he saw the light in me, I was able to see it in myself. And that's part of the miracles that says a miracle is when you can extend, when one person who temporarily has more has that to give and offer to someone who temporarily has less, right? Because you're maybe feeling right now that you have temporarily have less, but I see you complete and whole and perfect. And it's just that ember inside of you, that spark that is maybe starting to lose faith and fall into that place of being unsure of your wholeness and your perfectness, right? And when we get into that place, it's just, we lose faith, we forget who we are, and it's part of the learning process. It's almost like when we say, I want to learn about life, I want to know who I am, the universe goes, okay, here, boom, right? And throws it all on us and gives us all these opportunities to learn who we are by letting us feel who we are not, right? All opportunities to learn and grow. So as we're fighting our way through that and out of that darkness, that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And it starts with simple tools like 3 things I'm grateful for. I mean, those were some of the things that got me out of that hole of darkness. Just every single morning before I got out of bed. It could have been my cup of tea. It could have been the sun was shining, right? And I don't know if that's happening where you are. Are you able to get out in the sunshine? Are you able to do that? So that's important too. But, you know,
I'm living close to the beach in 2 minutes walking distance, and it's south of Spain. So there's almost every day is shining.
Beautiful. Yeah. Do you have like a meditation practice that you do every day?
Usually in the morning.
In the morning. How about yoga? Are you moving your body?
I started, I'm actually grateful for that. I'm usually not a grateful person. I don't have a strong gratitude thing in me. But, but I actually did find on YouTube, there's a lovely girl called Adrienne, and she does yoga with Adrienne. And so I just started doing that just about 20 minutes a day and kind of, but I do it daily. And I try to do walks by the beach as well. Just, it's like medicine. It's like I do it as a practice, because I just, honestly, it's like I'm better now, but a few, at the point that I really felt low and I was bombarded by fear, and all kind of weird neurological issues, I really thought my body was dying. It was like that. It was like, it's like, I just felt no energy, you know? It was like, And I was like, force myself, okay, I'm going to start now walking. I'm going to start now doing a bit yoga to, so I'm sharing a lot. Because what happened before that, I went ultra spiritual. I don't know if that makes sense. I was like doing lots of meditations. I had this constant talk with spiritual teacher, and I was totally not connected to the body. I was eating only soup. I was just totally out there and not embodied. And then it's like my worst nightmare. I totally got, it's like everything started, I started feeling everything in the body. Mm-hmm. And it's the most annoying thing for me. It's like the pain, the stress. If it used to be just a mental thing, now it's like wherever there is stress, I totally feel it in the body. I feel it in the head. Fear, I feel. It's like everything that was once a mental, subconscious thing now is like turned into being expressed through the form. And maybe that's some sort of healing, because it's like an iceberg, that's probably, it was in the subconscious and it was hidden, and then it's like surfaced, and I see the whole iceberg. But it's totally uncomfortable to actually face this stress and fear on a bodily level, but in a way, I mean, my wish was to become like Jesus the Christ. I agree on that one.
Right.
Who totally embodied. So I feel that he wasn't just like, a concept. He was actually fully there, fully, every ounce of him, every molecule was that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I wanted.
Yeah.
I have to head out.
Right?
Can I just add one? I just have to head out, but I wanted to tell Angelina one thing. There is a group that just started. I don't know if you're on Facebook, but it's called Souls Rising Up Now, and it's a gratitude group. But February 15th was the first day, and they're talking about learning how to incorporate gratitude into your life. And she's doing it step by step for 28 days. So if you're on Facebook and you want to look it up, her name is Roxanne Colum, and it's called Souls Rising Up Now. So I have to head out, but I wanted to just add that.
Okay, thank you.
Great share.
Thank you.
So the other thing I wanted to add for you, Angelina, is, when we are wishing to have these experiences of enlightenment, the universe brings us a lot of opportunity, right? So it sounds like the universe is bringing you like just so much opportunity. And the one thing that A Course in Miracles does advocate is to do that lesson 365. I know you're just in the beginning, but everything in A Course in Miracles is look to your internal teacher for the guidance. Like, don't go out here to like a guru or a teacher out here. You have your own GPS system. The best GPS system is your internal teacher, which is that mind of God, which is the Christ, right? So go inside, and if you look at lesson 365, it says, this holy instant would I give to you, be you in charge, for I will follow you, certain that your direction will bring me peace. I've used that so many times with situations in my life, and then you literally have to let it go. Don't try to fix it or solve it or make it better. Just let it go. And then all of a sudden you can hear the voice. Quiet your mind, allow yourself to hear the voice, and boom, the answers will come, or the embodiment that you're looking for will come, and you'll feel that connection.
Yeah, I mean, I can write, I can receive messages, and it's like, that's the thing. It's like I have the connection with the spirit, but it's almost like when there's fear, it's like it's screen, it's
right.
like fog, and that's kind of what I feel now in the head also. Yeah. Like this kind of some tension, headache, and fogginess.
And do you find it difficult to choose love when you're in that moment of fear?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so here's a trick. If it's hard to choose love, just do something that's the next best thing. Just try to move the needle a little bit, whatever that little bit is, whether it's jumping up and down, whether it's listening to music that makes you happy, whether it's having some aromatherapy or going for a walk on the beach. Don't try to automatically go from fear to love if it's too big of a jump. Just move the needle a little bit. And as you continuously do that, pretty soon you'll see, oh, I went from fear to love.
Yeah, Terry, I was going to say that and add to it that perhaps the feeling in your body is just getting more in touch with feelings. You're observing and you're having these things. And if you don't think of it as negative, if it's part of this experience and just going with it, perhaps that will help go to the next level. It's almost like I'm hearing that you think it's a setback, and perhaps it's just part of the path that you're translating what you're getting, and you're translating it into knowing what feels off or not in your body, and those are indicators of when you're not in alignment. And then, like Terry said, just doing the next best thing that brings you some peace or joy. The other thing is affirmative prayer, where you see yourself not in fear, see yourself, what would it be like to have the experience of not being in fear, of being in that peace and love and joy state, and see yourself in that state several times a day, experience what that would be like. And because we really know no sense of time, and the body knows no sense of separation truly, when you envision that, it is, you come into it, and that's like a wonderful form of prayer. And so rather than fight against it, just see yourself in the state you want to be in.
That's great. Yeah. Great, Mary. Stop and listen and just feel it. And
yes.
Perfect.
I started as some sort of part of some Ayurvedic course that I started, but they told us to choose one routine, one ritual routine to do every morning, and I chose actually prayer. Right in the morning, and I really love it. Actually, it's like it does start the day in a better way.
That's great. Great tool for your toolbox. All right. Well, is everybody complete? Are we good? I'm so glad to.
Yeah, Terry, can I just ask you something?
Sure.
You said when you were in that low place that you had some sort of body illnesses, and did they disappear when your mental states became better?
Completely.
Really?
Yeah, they did.
But was it like just like that, or was it gradual?
It was gradual, and it was gradual because at that place where my mind was at, I had sunk so low into depression that it was a gradual coming out of that. But as soon as the momentum started to turn around, it was quicker and quicker. The more momentum I got behind going up, the faster I was able to do that. I also did had a really cool experience when I did a meditation, a chakra opening meditation. Stuart Wilde has a book called The Sixth Sense. And he says to open your chakras by visualizing this little turbine that's spinning counterclockwise, starting in your root chakra, and you dribble it up and down your chakras, and each time you open up your chakra. Well, after about the third time of dribbling it and opening up all my chakras, I didn't know what to experience. I jumped inside of it when it came up past my third eye, and was in this experience of being in this vast, huge, eternal space of darkness, but there were lights everywhere. It was like black as night. but then there were all these lights all around me. And I didn't really have any fear. It was more like excitement. Like the first time you look at the Grand Canyon, or the first time you put glasses on and looked under the ocean and saw that there was another world down there, kind of lost my breath excitement. And then as I was in that moment of awe, I got a little nervous because I didn't know how I got there, and I was looking for the door. And as soon as I started looking for the door, I got out of it and back into my body. But that experience was one of those experiences that was instantaneously cleaned my whole body. And I didn't even, I wouldn't say I was sick before I did that, but you know how you always can feel like a little mucusy or a little, you know, muscle tightness here or there. I felt like someone dipped my whole body in this white light, and I had energy and clarity and just perfect health. And it was all part of that experience of having my mind in that place of at-one-ment. So that was a different time, but really a cool experience where I did feel the healing instantly.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of cool experiences.
Direction into any of the lessons. I'm looking at the table of contents, Angelina, and I see one that says, I am at home, fear is the stranger here. So you might read through the table of contents and see if anything of the lessons resonates with you that might be of help.
That's a good point. All right, everyone, I am going to say goodbye today if everyone is complete, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining. Great to see all of you. And if you want to keep in touch, Angelina or Marilyn, if you're not already Facebook friends with me, feel free to find me on Facebook, and you know, we can continue our conversations, or I can share all these other things that I'm doing too to be in touch. Thank you, Allie, for being here today, and Mary, great to see you. And Samantha, thank you for being here too. So
thank you, Terry.
Thanks, everyone. You have a great day, and see you next week.
Ciao.
All right. Bye, everyone.